At the Academy Awards recently, a really bizarre movie won for Best Picture and Best Director. It's called The Shape of Water, and it has something to do with love between a human and a fish, or some shit like that. I didn't see the movie. I don't care. I think that in Hollywood, they're really disconnected from regular people and kind of yuppie and douchey and annoying, and they think they're like cutting edge, but in reality, this is just goofy in my opinion. That even though I haven't seen that movie, I'm going to judge it. It looks stupid. I shouldn't do that. That's not fair because I haven't seen it yet, but nonetheless, here I am. Well, fundamentalist radio host Kevin Swanson doesn't just view this movie as weird, okay? I think it's weird. It's ridiculous. But he doesn't just see it that way. He goes way, way further. In fact, he sees this movie as apocalyptic, and he's going to explain why on his radio show.
Followed the Academy Awards for 10, 15 years as we have broadcast on this radio program. And that's because the Academy Awards tends to be the leading edge for the moral collapse of the nation. So it's good to know, I guess, what the leading edge is doing as it continues to lead the moral collapse of the nation. So the Academy Award ceremonies this week provided the Best Film and Best Director Oscar to a violation of the worst possible sexual sin mentioned in Leviticus chapter 18. Maybe I just leave it there. I don't want to defile the ears of my listeners. But this was another milestone in the moral degradation of Hollywood and the nation itself. Now, what it did was it presented the ultimate sexual depravity. And again, I don't want anybody thinking what this is. But the ultimate sexual depravity as presented in Leviticus 18 is presented in this movie as a tender, romantic, and a beautiful thing. Now, even saying that's just disgusting. Exactly. And, Leviticus 18 wraps up this way, by the way, concerning all these abominable sexual practices that God warned Israel of in Leviticus 18. He wraps up this way: you shall keep my statutes and my rules and do none of these abominations, either the native or the stranger who sojourns among you. For the people of the land who were before you did all of these abominations so that the land became unclean, lest the land vomit you out when you make it unclean as it vomited out the nation that was before you. In other words, what he's saying is this Old Testament nation that had no covenantal connection with God was destroyed because of these abominable practices. And God says, be careful, but I might just bring this to you. If you violate my law to the level of egregiousness contained in the moral commands in Leviticus chapter 18. So friends, again, it's these abominable practices that are being committed in this nation today and glorified at the highest echelons of this nation.
So God is angry about the movie that won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. If that's your view of what God cares about, then your God is not all that serious. How many kids have cancer right now? How many people are dying of starvation right now? How many people are in a North Korean concentration camp? How many people have a disease that we have no medicine for, no cure for, and they don't even have painkillers to take the edge off, and they're laying somewhere in the middle of rural India in excruciating pain before they die? And the list goes on and on. How many people have been bombed or maimed? Kids in Yemen have cholera right now. There's a blockade of the country. People are starving to death. There's all this pain and suffering, and people are living tumultuous lives. And it's a nightmare in so many places across the globe. But Kevin Swanson's God is angry over the Academy Awards. I can't believe this picture won Best. Who gives a fuck? Listen, I agree that the picture's goofy. It's just silly. But ultimately, I don't give a fuck. I don't care about the Academy Awards by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a bunch of rich assholes getting together and sniffing each other's farts and thinking that they're awesome. That's all it is. The idea that God, could you imagine there's a God like with a long white beard sitting in a cloud right now looking down, and he's like, let's see what's happening in the world. Oh, Guillermo del Toro, or however the fuck you say his name. I don't know how to say his name. Oh, this guy is so immoral. I cannot believe you're giving the award to the fish-human sex movie. I don't know why my God impersonation sounds like the devil, but it does kind of sound like the devil. How would you do a God voice? My son, don't give the award to the human fish sex movie. God needs an echo. That's why you gotta do movie. It's just, oh my God, what a loser this guy is. He's so, by the way, can you imagine what his search history on his computer looks like? Oh, this guy is definitely, he's so outraged by the human fish sex movie that you know damn well he was looking up like creepy ass porn where a dude shoves his dick in an octopus or something. He has to be people dressed as fucking fish and having sex, or, you know, just whatever kind of creepy, fringe sexual shit that's out there. Kevin Swanson is into it. I mean, I'm nearly convinced of it. He's got to be into bestiality. By the way, people say it's called bestiality, but I don't know why it would be called bestiality when it's bestiality. You know, you're having sex with an animal, so it's like a beast, but technically it is spelled bestiality, but that's a side conversation. This dude's search history is fucked up. And you could tell he's just trying to fight off the urges, because how many times have we done those stories? In fact, we're going to do another one of those stories today of the anti-gay Christians. Either it's a politician or it's a religious figure, and then you just find them blowing some dude in a bathroom on a highway. Like, that's always what happens. And this guy's like, I'm so outraged by your deviant sexual activity. Anyway, www.germanfartporn.com. Yes. That's Kevin Swanson. I still can't believe the people who are fundamentalist Christians. I don't know if I've ever heard a segment where Kevin Swanson is concerned about extreme poverty. I don't know if I've ever heard a segment where Kevin Swanson is railing against offensive wars that his country commits on a regular basis. We're bombing 8 countries right now. I got news for you. Niger is not about to attack Kentucky. It's not going to happen, but we're bombing Niger right now. Is Kevin Swanson outraged about that? Is he out? No. See, he loves Jesus. He just doesn't like Jesus when he's in all of his good moods and teaching all of his hippy-dippy, lovey-dovey stuff. That's when he's like, forget about that. Let's get to the sexual condemnation in the Old Testament. Kevin Swanson loves the Old Testament, but, you know, if you get into the details, he probably doesn't even know half of it. I mean, the Old Testament says it's an abomination to wear 2 different fabrics in the eyes of God. So you can't mix 2 different fabrics. It says it's an abomination to eat shellfish. Really? If I were making a list of things that you shouldn't do as a human being, a list of what's moral and not moral, pretty sure I'd leave off anything about eating shellfish. I mean, you might say, hey, you should be against eating all animals. I see the moral argument from that position just because it was a conscious thing on some level or another. I get that. But really, you're going to make a list of, like, that makes your list of, the Old Testament has a 7-headed dragon in it. They talk about the earth being flat in multiple parts of the Bible. I mean, there's genocide in it, man. Like, there's genocide in the Bible in the Old Testament. So if you were to, even if you look at the 10 Commandments, the idea that, like, this is definitely the list of the 10 things you shouldn't fucking do. No. Some of the shit in there is like, don't worship other gods. What? That's in your top 10 list. So they don't have child rape on the list of the 10 things you shouldn't do, but they do have don't build graven images. What? Don't dishonor your mother and father. What if your mom and dad are fucking assholes? What if, whatever, one of them did sexual assault and the other one's locked up for murder? Like, what does that mean? Why would you put that as a hard rule? Like, no, the hard rule should be, all the ones that we would agree in a reasonable conversation if we sit down and had a room full of 100 people. We'd all come to the right conclusions for those 10 things. But they use a book from thousands of years ago that mixes in a bunch of nonsense. See, this guy, he really believes that there's a heaven and there's a hell. And on some level, I feel bad for him. Because he just seems tortured. He seems like a tortured individual. But But ultimately, all he does is cast judgment on people all day long and care about all the things that don't matter, like what you do with your penis. So, fuck him in the final look at it. But I will say that overall, the liberals in Hollywood who just love giving awards to the goofiest movies, it's like, you guys are silly. Like, they think, ooh, we're so high-minded and we're so cultured. No, you're just weird. That's a weird movie that you gave the award to. There's so many better movies that were made this year. It's like, let's go to the weirdest, fucking creepiest one. Oh, yeah, we're so cultured. I hate those people, but I also hate the fundamentalists who are like, they think that's like the scandal, biggest scandal in the world, and God is against it. No, you're invisible man in a sky, Jigglypuff in space, who's a wizard, who's monitoring your thoughts and all your actions and what you do with your penis, doesn't exist. So get over it.